Hi everybody. So the last two videos I did, the first one was speaking to, well, the kind of title of it was Clearing Persecution Timelines. And the reason that I did that video was to give a bit of insight into the decision-making process and the repercussions, consequences, responsibilities, and accountabilities of what it takes to step back into medicine work. All right. The second video that I did was around self-agency versus mission work, right? And today's video, I'm going to dive in a little deeper into the topic around plant medicine and the facilitation of this space, because I know that only at around 36 minutes into that video do I really start speaking about the experience. And one of the reasons behind that is because, I guess I have fear, and that's part of clearing the persecution timelines, right? Will I be persecuted? Will I be judged for stepping back into this creation energy as an expression of myself, as knowledge and tools that I've gained around trauma and, soul expansion, consciousness expansion around the 11 years that I've been working in this space? Will I be persecuted? Will I be judged? And this brings into consideration the safety that we feel from groups. So we have groups, we have our group formats and constructs that provide us support and mirrors and reflections surrounding what it is we are experiencing and the questions that we have on our internal journeys, on that which we call our spiritual path. And I don't want to upset that apple cart, because these groups are very supportive for me and to me. But as one that would call them quite high-level groups, or a group of souls that are functioning at a high level of consciousness, knowing that which we know, uncovering the mysteries of time and space and the atrocities that have happened in this planetary complex, it's a scary space to step in and say, hey, I've made a decision, not that I needed to, but truth and transparency and authenticity are very important to me, and I think it's important for that level of group to understand who is in their group, from a practical perspective, as well as a consent perspective, as well as the perspective around transparency and honesty and respect and honoring each member of the group. So it's like, if you want to go into polyamory, for example's sake, and you don't tell your partner that you've found another person and that you wish to participate in play with that person, well, that would be very disrespectful to the person that you have made a commitment to, right? So it's much the same. And it took quite a lot of bravery for me to do that. And on the back end of the bravery of making that decision is also a timeline of about 11 months of consideration around this topic. So I thought I would dive into this a little deeper today. First thing would be a wise question to ask oneself would be, why did I step out? Why is there why am I speaking to the topic of mushrooms being somewhat of a space to have consideration around, not around legality and things like that. I'm speaking in a sovereign sense as a medicine facilitator, or one that was wearing that facilitator's hat, and someone that has experienced and played and worked with this medicine for so many years. Why would I retreat and come to an inner space of reflection around this medicine? That why would I do that? And so I'm here to answer that question today. So the first part of it is based on personal experience and my personal trajectory as a soul. And I think I've mentioned this in other videos. And so the first one would be around the identity layers and wanting to shift out of the identity of the shaman and the medicine server and understand if I had the capacity and capability to become my own medicine. Is that what I am experiencing in ceremony and what my clients are experiencing in ceremony actually coming from me, or is it just the mushrooms? I'm not going to answer those questions now. I'm just giving you insight into how my mind thinks and the depth of thought going around this. And how do I move into a trajectory of stepping into my own evolutionary path, not being dependent on something? So that was the first aspect, all right? How do I step into continuing on this path of the soul journey, the evolution of the soul, without being dependent on something else that I know has the capacity to boost me into magic, right? Am I still magical without this thing? Is this just a phase, because I know that a lot of people will, maybe step into a healing space, a plant medicine space, and then all of a sudden jobs are quit and we've come into this pseudo neo-shamanistic space where now everybody is serving. And, I wanted to make sure that wasn't just the case. And I knew it, but I'm just kind of sharing it from the perspective of what I see in reality. And my perspective is that nothing is wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere. But some of us, when we get to a pressure point within our work scope and we start to realize the dangers or the byproducts of this level of work, or the entanglements within this level of work, or the responsibility and accountability, you may step away. And in that stepping away is another aspect of yourself, and where you'll question yourself and go, sure, what am I here to do? Did I just move into a fictitious role for myself for a certain amount of time, and now I don't really perceive myself as a healer, etc., etc. That could occur. But again, everybody is in a soul trajectory. Everybody is in a soul path. And ultimately, it doesn't matter, this is my perspective, it doesn't matter what you do. Every tributary is going to bring you to a soul experience in order to expand. It's really that simple. And my expansion point had come where I wanted to make sure that I had the capacity to work with pure energetics without the infiltration of anything else. Okay. And so that's what I've been working on quite diligently over the last year. And it is why and how the Azurite Temple birthed for me, which is a creation that also took a lot of courage and bravery, because at that point of creating that, I was like, well, do I have the capacity to teach about these technologies? And it's not only teaching, they are recorded, they are out there for free. But do I, am I able to do this? Can I represent this body of work? Because we go through so many aspects around identities, and I don't want to identify as anything, as in I'm now a Christos guardian giving you the secret codes of the universe through these techniques. No, I am Brigitte as individualized consciousness, and I am God as one unity consciousness. And between that is a whole bunch of archetypes and layers that I would call dragon, that I would call Iani or angelic, that I would call Christos avatar aspect of myself, that I would call my oversoul and my soul. There are many, many different hats that are being worn. So who am I to say that I am the holiest of thou presenting this data? No, I am creator, sovereign, and I wish to explore this aspect of consciousness and creation with you. Do you wish to join me? Do you want to take my hand? And here are the code of ethics, the terms and conditions around doing this with me. All right. So I'm very cautious not to take on, grandiose titles, because it only ends you in the shit box when you realize, and you should have humility on this path, when you realize that when that body of consciousness or teachings comes to its expiry date, you are sitting once again in humility going, oh my gosh, what is next? And so, like my video, the second video that I did around mission versus agency, and this aspect around playing and participation is very much an ethos of mine, because we can become so burdened by the complexities of spirituality, enlightenment, embodiment. All right, it's actually embodiment, it's the ascension process. And we can become really overwhelmed, and we can move into freeze. It's fight, flight, freeze. So a part of the process of my medicine work was to move into a bit of freeze mode, where it was a deep evaluation process of observing metatronic distortions within my work. So those of you that would have worked with me in the past would know that I worked very deeply with archangelic structures, a little bit of ascended master structures here and there, but mostly archangelic structures. And, when you look at this and you go, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for, 10 years of the 11 years that I've been working on this, or 9 years of the 11 years, you move to a space of embarrassment, you move to a space of shame, you move to a space of guilt, and you have to move through that. So with the Azurite Temple, for example's sake, you'll see one of the marketing aspects is we're going to help you move through shame and guilt. And because essentially, when we're uncovering the mask of the illusionary smoke and mirrors of this reality construct, you will see the distortions and be in a space of grief because you did not know better at that time. And we have to move through these phases. So it's like any grief process, through the anger, through the grief, through the isolation, through the shame, through the guilt, in and back to a breathing, functional nervous system that is able to participate and engage in reality. Although it may be, detached a little bit, but we're still here. We're still here. And my perception around mastery, and I'd love your comments around this, but my perception around mastery is very much about mastering all dimensional aspects. So even in the 3D, if you are on your spiritual quest and you are super open energy and you cannot handle the 3D, I feel there is something missing there. Again, I do not judge in any way, shape, or form around this because everybody is learning through a different set of experiences, right? And I cannot imagine how difficult it must be to be constantly functioning in the higher realms without having any connection to humanity in terms of service to others, that gains you and provides you with exchange in means of monetary funding or housing or food or whatever. I feel there's a missing gap there. I feel that there's a lack of embodiment of the aspect of the I am presence that you would call your individual consciousness. Because for me, it's an entire bridge system, right? Moving up, moving up the bridge networks through the harmonic universes and knowing which aspect of yourself is required at which part, within which density, etc., etc., etc. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but let me gather my thoughts quickly. Give me a second. Yeah, I guess layers of identity. Let's pick up there. Layers of identity. So observing that I wanted to move out of the identity of shaman or of medicine server and see what else existed, and moving into the Keylontic sciences, the freedom teachings, really working on the energetics myself, because that always existed within me of this aspect of like, am I making all of this up? I can feel the energy through my body. I'm aware of the chakra system, which to me is quite an outdated system at this point in time. I'm aware of that. But a lot of what I feel that I'm saying is, yes, it's an expression of what I'm experiencing, but a part of it felt a little made up, right? And this, in essence, is part of our journey, because we're stepping onto the boundary line at any point in time, knowing that we don't stand in perfection, knowing that we don't stand with all the knowledge at one point in time, and knowing that we need to step into bravery and courageous creation points in order to learn a lesson, right? In order to do something, to perform something, to function. Well, at least that is my experience. Maybe you were born with these gifts or whatever, but that's been my experience. So, you know, that was one aspect of it, wanting to move into a different layer of identity and embodying that. And at the time, I wouldn't have been able to describe it like that. I just knew that I was more, and I didn't want to limit myself. I didn't want to fall into the trap of this is the only way and means that I can exist in this reality. It's a fully fledged and functioning business model. Even though it is spirituality, we're still in this construct. It's a fully fledged and functioning business model. People know me for this thing, but I have a tendency to try and flip the script as much as possible. So anything that I am dependent on, I move away from in order to, it's like having a dopamine fast or a food fast or something like that. The moment I see dependence, I'll switch into new gears. And of course, there's expansion that comes from that. So that was the first part of it. But upon diving deeper into the freedom teachings and understanding Metatronic distortions far better, and within Metatronic distortions, understanding and gaining knowledge as well as memory around the galactic history and the distortions within our reality system from a perspective of AI or black hole systems and kind of succubus siphoning systems. This was really a part where I was like, oh shit, right, I get it, I see it, I understand. And what is it that I understood? Is that, hold on, before I say that, and along with the observation of the agendas out there that piece together the puzzle pieces for me around cloning, consciousness hijacking, transgender agendas, so the confusion being created about masculine and feminine energies, all of that, and many other things, sort of military control, kind of deep dive into the black pill world kind of things. Everything began to make sense to me at this point of time. And essentially, what does it mean? It means that we need to be very, very, very cautious around the giving of our energy. Now, that sounds really nice. That sounds okay to deal with. That sounds like something you may have heard in an empowerment workshop or a leadership workshop or even a business team building thing, all right? Be very careful about where you put your energy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. All of these things. Amazing. That's beautiful. It feels like we can deal and cope with that. But when we change the language around it and we say, be very careful around where you disempower yourself, because at that point in time, you are giving your energy away. And not only, so usually the sentence stops there and people go, oh yes, I understand that. I'll be more aware. I'll work on my boundaries, etc. But never do we ask, where is that energy going? So I'm giving it away. It may be a person, a place, or a thing. But when we're talking in the quantum space and we're starting to deal with what is reality, why are certain things looping? Why is pain looping? Why is war and all of these really, really horrific things on our planet? Why are they looping? And we look at it from a quantum perspective in a much bigger, so you can kind of see like a black hole energy, and you can imagine that this energy is going in there and it's recreating these kind of time rips in reality that keep us looping in these experiences. When we have that question answered, so where is it going, right? So why is it happening? It's because we've given our power away. Where is it going? It's going into these, let's call it a black hole system, or a system that is not beneficial for us, a system that would be basically stealing, a system that may have, and it may have been through manipulation, through your lack of knowledge of your rights as a being of mankind, and your lack of implementation around consent. So that's why it's happened. Where it's going to is a less than efficient or a more destructive system that is going to continue to perpetuate, difficult experiences on this planet. When you start to understand that, and not only understand in the cognitive sense, it's permeating through you. It's solid. It's solid as information. It's permeated through you, through all the layers. You get it. And what you also get with that is, I always harp on about this, is your responsibility now, knowing what you know. So if we then open ourselves up in altered states of consciousness, what are we in essence doing? We're opening our energy fields up. Who are you giving the authority to in order to assist you with that process? Would be the facilitator. Okay. Have you gone through a kind of code of conduct or a lesson or a briefing around sovereignty of choice, and also simultaneously understanding each person's role within the constellation that you are about to step into and co-create in? Have you done that? Or have you just booked the session because you're in need of a quick fix? All right. And you're giving all your rights away, your accountability away, your responsibility away for this facilitator or practitioner to work on you and to create a magic elixir for you. Right? Because that's what mostly happens. And I'm talking about plant medicine here, which is really going to open you up, right? But we can also have the same conversation around hypnosis. We can have the same conversation around going to a massage therapist. We can have the same conversation, and definitely should be having a conversation around tantra, around festivals, around just a simple glass of wine, around your daily joint of cannabis, around dream time. Okay, so when we're sleeping, we're multidimensional beings. Your conscious self is at rest, but there are other aspects of yourself still cruising through layers of creation. Okay, so you begin to see all of the spaces of openings, potential openings. What happens in potential openings? It's like if you're going to open a cookie jar and you've got kids around the house, little hands are going to come in and take a cookie. That is what we are programmed to do, is to take, to consume. All right. Often without asking and with no inquiry towards the consequences of taking or opening. So there's the one that opens the cookie jar. There's the one that takes from the cookie jar. Each has its role, right? And we've forgotten to ask deeper inquiring questions as to which role or what roles each is playing within the constellation, with accountability and knowledge around the fact that this is a creation that we've all consented to, hopefully consciously. And this is a very passionate space for me, because even prior to my break in medicine work, I have a deep contract that people sign. And at one point in time, or 2 points in time, two people within the legal field asked me if I got, a legal consultant to draw up this contract for me. And I said, no, I'd actually created it for myself through years of observation and research and experience within the spaces that I've created within the plant medicine space, observing how people step in without prior experience, how they can potentially move into spaces that are quite dissociative, etc., and needing to have my ducks in a row around consent and sovereignty in contractual work. So I already had that, but then learning more about the dark side of reality, and again, cloning, consciousness hijacking. So essentially, if I were to give you the storyline of the Matrix, this is basically what we begin to look at, and to see this as a simulation, and to go, geez, how on earth do I do what I do knowing this, right? How do I work around it? There's no working around it. You've got to go straight through it. Now we've got AI coming in. We've got this system, that system, these races of beings, these ancient contracts, the fall of the angelics, the fall of man, planetary systems imploding and exploding because of destructive use of crystalline technology, all of these things. How do I, just as Brigitte, connected through the bridge to God body, how do I do this? Because yes, in ceremony I'm holding a certain role, but I'm also still me. That is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of accountability, and the levels of accountability and responsibility in their weight, in their gravity, really came through to me during the COVID time, where I had a break, and it was in perfect timing because I already knew I was going to take a break. I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't anymore. I needed the break. And in this timeline, I was like, I get what I'm doing. I get why I'm doing it. Holy shit. This is a soul agreement with 3,000 souls. It's fucking huge, of which most of those souls have no real idea. And I say this with absolute love, and just from a space of expression, experience, and perception. Okay. It's not judgment, nor is it trying to pigeonhole someone, but most of these souls would have no idea of the greater and greater and greater aspects of creation, and neither did I at the time, and nor do I now. I have a big experience or understanding of the quantum field, but one thing I know is I'm just working within one little ecosystem, right? There's systems upon systems upon systems upon systems, and we have our physical manifest reality. Then we have antimatter realities as well, parallel realities, etc., etc., etc. It's wild, but it's extremely fascinating, because those of us that have always felt like, oh, good grief, is this it? Are we just supposed to work 9 to 5 and, have our families and then just die and press repeat, come back and do this? So from that perspective, it's amazing to be like, oh my gosh, there's so much to explore. Okay. But through things becoming larger, you're either, through things becoming larger, you realize the levels of the game, the levels of responsibility and accountability. And again, the question is, how do I do this just as one being? Yes, with my team, but how do I do this correctly without doing any harm, making sure that I'm not in distortions anymore? Right? Knowing that probably when the next system of reality and creation presents itself to me, I'll know that I was in a distortion again for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know. And that not knowing part can be soul destroying, or it can be an activator for you to be like, good grief, I'm just never going to know it all. I'm never going to know it all. and I don't pretend to, right? I don't pretend to. I am merely creating an experience based on the experience that I have within that creation. So this would be me stepping back in and saying, okay, great, I have experience in this thing. I have a gift in this space. I enjoy doing this thing, right? It brings me, it didn't always, right? When you need a break, you need a break, but it brings me pleasure to be in sacred ceremony. I think one of the titles that most suits me is Master of Ceremonies, right? It's when I light up. It's when I learn the most about my soul. And herein comes the next clincher. Okay, cool. So this is about me. Yes, it's about you within the law of one. But if this is about me and I gain from this, what am I siphoning off of my clients while I just move around a reality construct of my own design and possibly being negligent of everybody else's energy? But if I didn't create this, how would I learn? And would everybody just be standing as still robots because we're afraid to engage with each other in case we harm, in case we hurt, etc., etc.? So then we come back to intentions, right? So this is this like melting pot of decision making. As the data sets that you're downloading become bigger and bigger and bigger, the responsibility becomes larger and the decision making becomes harder. The decision making becomes harder. And so again, I'm going to say, I do not know it all. I have stepped back into the space with some changes. And those of you who are used to my one night ceremonies or one day and one night, I don't wish to work that way anymore because there's just too much to share. And that just feels a bit sausage factory to me. It just feels like an invoice, one night, cool, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It doesn't feel right. I want to work longer retreats, obviously knowing that everyone's financial capacities are also in a bit of dire straits at the moment and might well be for some time as our systems continue to collapse and we create the new. But because there is a certain level of non-attachment that I hold, and also the understanding that I'm in an eternal now moment, and within that eternal now moment, within that which I have created, I know that the benefit of that creation is experience. And so should I need to charge the same thing I did, but the right relationship to self and right relationship to God feels like it's right to work longer for less money so that my nervous system is more relaxed, so that your nervous system is more relaxed, so that you receive the teachings in more fluidity rather than this masculine energy, then so be it. There are so many ways to create. And ultimately, I think I've always been a big visionary. I'm always looking at the information coming kind of from this like top-down perspective. And everything that I create from the patterns that I can observe are there to shift the systems. And so I've come back in order to experiment. So experimentation sounds good from the perspective of play. It sounds good from the perspective of retrieval of data. It doesn't sound so good because within experimentation can come manipulation, right? And so this is where our language becomes very important and our intention. So there is an experimental aspect to this, but it's around creation. Can I once again recreate, redesign, recode something that was so dear and special to me and that I recoded and created at that timeline 11 years ago, now knowing how much distortion is in this field of work, meaning spirituality, spirituality, not only plant, and this is the thing, it's not only plant medicine spaces, it is spirituality, boom. It is reality, boom. It's all of it that's distorted, right? And when you see it all the time. I see it. I see all of it. I feel it. I understand it. It's there, right in front of me, right in front of me. And it can feel overwhelming, but man, oh man, my heart is still ticking. I'm still here, my feet on the ground. I still want to learn. I still want to play. I still want to earn. I still want to receive, right? And this is my co-creation. This is my creation. And I think it's also important to state, I cognitively know of, and like I said, it's an essence within me, a permeation. I get it, that whole matrix thing, like how consciousness is hijacked through non-consensual action and manipulation of power, and therefore siphoning of energy. I get it. And that is happening at many moments through the day, through many different gateways and windows. At any point in time, it can be happening with teenagers and their parents. At any point in time, it's happening. It just feels more damning and darker as you step into different ways of learning about the energy. However, and this is my thinking at the moment, and I could be completely wrong, right? But this is my thinking at the moment. So I said, as the data gets bigger and bigger, your responsibility gets bigger and bigger. However, let's take that teenager aspect. So you have your first relationship, you've given all your power away to your partner, it's destructive, it's soul destroying, you break up, you are dying, it's your first love, you're dying, it's just the most destructive and soul destroying feeling. Now, if you look at that teenager, that is the biggest grief that they are dealing with. The pain and the suffering that they are dealing with is huge, right? Because it's all relative. That is their reality at that point in time. Now, as we have bigger experiences, but they're just different experiences, right? Who are we to give it size? I don't know. So allow me to flow with the language. So we have bigger experiences, or we could just describe them as different experiences. And those different experiences, let's say let's go on that trajectory. So now you've been married, you've got a new partner, you've been married, you've had kids, and now you go through a divorce, and now there is lawyers involved, there's money involved, there's all of these things involved that weren't there as the teenager experience. Is the pain any less than the teenager experience, or is it bigger? Or does it just feel bigger? Right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe as we rise through our adulthood, it's meant to be bigger so that we can evolve more and more and more. Okay, so it's different. There are just maybe more variables involved. I think that's a good way of saying it. Perhaps there are just more variables involved, right? And so then you go on your healing path and to heal from your divorce. And next thing, you're in shamanism, whatever. This is just a hypothetical story. And now you're dealing with different variables within your reality. So now you're dealing with constructs of energy, entities, angels, masters, ascended masters, demonics, whatever it is. Is it bigger, or are they just different variables? Now moving to what I've had to deal with, or what I've been dealing with, is the variables are now cloning, consciousness hijacking, artificial systems of creation that are sucking and siphoning energy, that are hooking you up to false antichrist systems. These things sound really big, and they are, but from our evolutionary point are we not learning the same lesson each time? It's just it's just a bigger or a different set of data that you are reinforcing the same lesson. And the lesson is, don't give your power away. Don't give your power away. Don't be in fear. Don't give your power away. Don't be in fear. Don't give your power away. Don't be in fear. Right? And this is what's allowed me to step back in, is go, I've always been honest. I do not know it all. All right? I do not know it all. I hope to never harm a soul. I am in inner standing that it is all one. When I am less integrated and moving through shadow, I question that one, right? Because that which I am facing as shadow seems so distant from anything that I could possibly see as myself, that I want to reject it as myself. So AI, the dark and scary monsters in the closet, the aspects of our genetic and ancestral and ancient galactic lineages and races and DNA mutations that represent races and lineages that we would describe as fallen. Don't want to look at it, don't want to look at it, don't want to look at it. It's dangerous, it's dark. But is it not the same thing? Don't give your power away. It's all one. Come back to your power. It's all one. And ultimately, through all the questioning of what is God, it's unconditional love, because my perspective is that you can't survive without that inner standing. You just can't. I mean, you can, but will you be experiencing joy? Will you be experiencing pleasure? Will you be able to work your life force, your vitality, your gifts, your expression, your beingness without that unconditional love? So whatever presents, if it doesn't kill you as such, makes you stronger, right? And so this is me being very transparent, being very upfront about the dangers of actually just existing, right? Because here I am speaking of plant medicine. However, we have a tricky little thing that nobody likes to talk about very much around the shot, right? And many people say, oh my God, that's over. Are we still harping on about this? Well, if we bring in now nanotechnology and we dive into this subject matter, would that not be the exact example of hooking people up to different electromagnetic frequency systems in order to gravitate that body and therefore consciousness and therefore energy to plug into that in order for profits, control, whatever? Would that not be the same thing? All right. And again, this is why I've come back into the space, because I'm like, fuck it. I now, through the study and understanding of this 15th dimensional time matrix, I understand how constructs come into being, right? I understand how fragile and magnificent our mental bodies are, and that our perception creates our reality field, and that whether that is subjective or objective or true or not doesn't matter. It is the construct that you are creating for yourself through your perceptive field. And that can be so, it's a word, hold on. That can be so It's nowhere. This word is nowhere. The thought process and perception can bring into magnification that which you perceive as your reality field, so much so that it can be so convincing. Sorry. Convincing is the word. That it actually comes into creation. And so the levels of somewhat, somehow, tangible evidence of this, I have experienced in my life. I have experienced it through picking a mode of work that was completely out of anything my family unit would have thought me to do, that was completely out of anything that I even knew that I could do or would do as a path. And here I am, even through the distortions. Here I am. I still feel quite free, quite sovereign. I'm feeling in a very empowered state at the moment. Those times are not forever, right? They're not forever, but I can feel what it feels like. And part of that is because there is an aspect of like my memory system that has a remembrance of what it feels like to be free. And I always picture it as this giant body of energy that walks freely. It's just that is, right? And there's also part of me coming back in where it's going, a lot of the mushrooms teaches, or a lot of your mushroom work will teach you to let go, right? Let go and be okay with that which you are experiencing. And, because this too shall pass, what comes up must come down, okay? And in essence, that's going to help you dissolve aspects of your ego, dissolve coping mechanisms, dissolve your, that which you are holding onto that is causing you pain and suffering, and expand and extend your zones of tolerance, right? And why that's important to me as a teaching is that as we continue to expand and this melting pot of the darkness of our reality unfolds, perhaps you may be able to deal with it a little bit more, because it just is. It is what it is. Once you have to look at it, and so not so much deal with it, but it's like, when I say deal with it, what I mean is, or what I'm alluding to is to know that it exists without not having to face it. So you're facing it. You know it exists. We all know there is war and savagery on this planet, right? So we know that it's there. You cannot not be faced with it in some way, shape, or form. Yet we move on, and those of us who have created a reality construct outside of those zones of war are experiencing different realities, right? And so it just is what it is. But from that, there's a certain sense of power where we're like, okay, well, it is what it is, but I don't wish to create in that manner anymore. I don't wish to create like that anymore. I don't wish to experience these things anymore. And so we do further and further and further and further inner work. And in that inner work, we come to possibly a body of work that'll teach you about how creation works. And once you begin to engage in it and see it for what it is and understand how it works, you then have the capacity to create from there. And that's where I'm sitting. That's where I feel like I am, is it's just there and going, and we and I've said this before in videos, there could be a narcissism aspect to this, of going, well, I'm a creator being. And it's kind of that aspect around be careful what you wish for. But I wish to engage in this modality and to create a new way of working in this modality so that I can refine that which I've done over 10 years and to co-create with those who feel in alignment with these words, with that creation. Because I would be a fool to say, well, not I would be a fool. I am not healing you. I have a healing frequency. I am not saving you. I have just created something that might be a propulsion zone for you to sort your shit out and save yourself. I am not the shaman. We spoke about this weekend on retreat. It's not what, you may see it in some marketing, but again, remember that we're dealing with different levels and constructs of creation, and everyone's coming in and reading, whatever it is they're reading at different levels. And so I'm just playing that game, but not playing as in, like I said, playing and experimenting could have a negative connotation. My intention is very pure, to not play from a manipulation perspective, but play based on the knowledge that I have of how creation works and where people are at with regards to their biases, their filtration of information, and how if they pop through and there's just a slight alignment, they can pop through and have an experience with me that might open something up, right? Again, it's not about saving. It's not about fixing. It's not about the egoic guru role in any way, shape, or form, right? It's about creation and sovereignty. For me, at least, that is what it is about. It is also a space where I can practice that which I am learning, and my perception, so therefore my creation around it, is that if I am practicing it, working those grid systems while I'm doing this work, it inevitably is permeating like an osmosis through into the space, right? And herein, so that sounds amazing, but herein lies the but. But what if I am doing it incorrectly? So through my practicing and experimentation, what if I am doing it incorrectly? Then through that osmosis theory, inevitably it would be affecting you, quote unquote, negatively. In this point in time, we would have to reflect and say, well, within the law of one, do we actually have right or wrong? Or do we just have a sequence of experiences that we are learning from? It can become very tricky, convoluted, entangled, and messy. I'm aware of that. But I feel that if we step solidly into experiences, taking ownership of choice, then we are truly stepping merely into an experience. Whether the byproduct is deemed as positively polarized or negatively polarized, as positive or negative, is a consequence of the sovereign choice made in the beginning. And this is ultimately the basis of the thing that I love to teach is, yes, we have the mushroom journeys. Yes, I have the breath work, but it's the aspects around and you'll see it on my post. Do you know why you're here? Do you know why you're engaging in this content? Have you decided to interact with me? Are you wasting your time? Are you dopamine fixing? Are you scrolling? Are you looking for any magic elixir? Or do you want to step in and create alongside me as co-creator while I play the role of lead facilitator for this amount of time and space and within this constellation? That is the actual question of what I'm doing, and what I really, really love to teach is Do you know why you are doing what you are doing? For what reason, what purpose? And can you acknowledge the source of that inquiry within you, and then take responsibility for all consequences from that choice? So, is there a parallel or future timeline or antimatter time-space continuum where my decision-making now with regards to going back into service of this is creating a negative domino effect? I do not know how to answer that at this point in time. I really do not. Does stepping into the space mean that your consciousness could and has potential to be siphoned and hijacked by something based on my inability as a consequence of being human, because I do not know it all? It possibly does. Will you be aware of that in an immediate moment? More than likely not. Why? Because it is so big. Reality is so big. It is so big. I do not know how to answer that. One would then ask, well, what the fuck are you doing? How are you assisting us through this process? Right? For me, it is really the preparation of the journey that guides you, like I said, just before this kind of very serious part, right? It's the preparation before the journey that asks you to constantly look at your decision-making around joining and participating with me, number one. Number two, it is in my experience in trauma release. Number three, it is my experience in that what I would describe as one of my passions, and that's self-mastery. So how do we work within this medicine space, still using the master medicine of breath, through 11 years of experience and many, many thousands of people through the door, I have a collection of data in which I can create a high probability of safety for you. Remember, safety as well is something that is going to be very personal to you. One person may feel very safe on a cruise liner and another person may not. All right? So what else am I doing? I am allowing you a slower process through using Kelantic sciences and sacred sons in order to bring through the harmonics of higher dimensional aspects of our 15th dimensional time matrix that I perceive, according to my knowledge at this time, to be a set of harmonics, as I've said, that create a grid structure that is allowing us to experience a more organic experience. Okay, but that's just from me. You are an individual soul with your own encryption that can come in, and let's say the color of our picture is yellow and gold, and you're coming in with blues and grays. All right, this is all going to mix in, and this is, I think, what I'm passionate about, is the letting go and facing reality for what it is, and as it is at this point for someone like me, and perhaps you, is fuck tons of data, fuck tons of knowledge, gateways of information, of past, present, future, parallel, opening up. That's what it is. And facing it, still participating and playing within it. Because we are eternal. We are eternal. We are consciousness itself. Right. Let me just see if there's anything else that I'd like to add here. Everybody begins somewhere. And the beginning is the end is the beginning. It's eternal. Those were my last words, right? It's eternal. I also began somewhere, and I am here 11 years later, experiencing reality and consciousness in a way that I never could have imagined in any way, shape, or form. There's no way. I'm not living the cookie cutter life. I have not gone down a traditional route, which I would actually describe as an inverted route. I have not gone down that route, and I sit here still able to be authentic, honest, scared, vulnerable, humble. I don't know it all. There's so much, and one thing I do know is I do not wish for persecution upon my free will decisions. I believe that karma is happening at any moment in time in reality. It's not something that is going to click in once you die, and then there's a sheet of paper with all of your misgivings on it, and then cool, you've got the next one too. I believe it's happening at every single moment because it's an interactive field. It's a living, breathing, sentient field. It's information. It's code. It's reading and writing at any point in time. And in my now moment, if I'm reading my reality field, I feel in alignment. I feel liberated. I feel supported. I feel unique. I embrace my uniqueness. Like I said, I wouldn't be sharing this or posting this in the now moment if I was moving through shadow. I've come through into a breathing point. And one thing I know is that there will always be shadow. There will always be initiations. And I feel kind. I feel balanced, although I have been working a little excessively in order to, but it's part of my creation. So I've been working quite excessively over the last 3 months so that my creations can burst into being, doing the best that I can within linear time, or that which we call linear time, so that the birthing of my, that which I was planning in my creations can be enjoyed in presence. And when I am creating and working, I'm really loving it. It's a very deep process that I actually had to look up and go, am I dopamine addicted here, or is this pure passion, right? And from when I asked, it was just a ChatGPT ask, and I felt the answer within myself, but I just wanted to check, because I can work up to 10 to 12 hours a day, like solidly for quite a long time. And I have been doing that, and I feel the results of that, and life on planet Earth is hard from a financial perspective for many of us. But one thing I do see is when you are driven and you put you're in your flow, it's expressed. It's expressed in the laws of the universe. It does feel like we have to work harder and harder and harder for less. And this is why we have to, or not have to, there is an invitation to make sure that which you are putting your time into, and that's why I always question you on my content, that which you are putting your time and energy into is the thing that brings you joy. Because if all else failed, and this is a question I asked myself, actually I'm grateful that I remembered this, is like, if all else failed, if all systems failed and there wasn't any money, we didn't exchange in money, and I didn't know about these dark things, but I still had my consciousness of this individualized consciousness of this experience in this incarnation, right? What would I do? Would I still do plant medicine ceremonies? Would I still perform those or hold them? Would I hold them? It's not a performance. And my question is yes, and it's got to do with that master of ceremonies aspect. There is this coming home around the sacredness around the experience. And please know that within the law of one, I deem pretty much everything sacred, like everything. And it can be annoying for other people because they just want you to be a little bit human, you know. But it's an internal process. It's mine. I know what I'm doing and how I'm participating. And yes, sometimes I lose aspects of awareness. I'm still a little one in the universe, and also an elder as well. And yeah, just ceremony space is just, I love it. I love it. It just feels home to me. It feels like what I'm here to do. I love it. It's who I am, and as much as we're not kind of supposed to say those things because it alludes to identity, but as an expression of God, I am ceremony, I am sacred, I am. So I think this video has been an important one, a good one. You know, many of you, this may be way over your head. And for you, I say, hello. It's Brigitte, if you do know me. I'm still here. I understand. You may have touched base on information around the more scientific aspects of the benefits of this medicine, right? The aspects around alleviation of depression and anxiety, the aspects around neuroplasticity within the brain, right? These things still are as well. When we're experiencing completely different levels of consciousness, the storyline around something is going to be completely different. So all of it exists. And in anything, you know, in anything, all aspects exist. Bread is a delicious, delicious, delicious treat with some butter and jam on it. But if you're eating bread all day, this carbohydrate and sugar is going to transform your body into something less efficient, less productive, right? It's the same beautiful piece of bread, you know? So, that was a weird ending for me to bring in bread, but maybe it's nice and homely and earthly, and I guess in this moment, the homely and earthly aspect that I'm trying to draw in here is to any of you that are listening that are just like, whoa, wow, what is this woman speaking about? And those of you that may have been friends with me for a long time or known me for a long time, because that's a whole nother video. What is friendship? What is relationship? Right? I just want to honor it all. And I possibly could come across as quite a little wacky here. And so let's bring in that bread aspect of just this like beautiful smell of the bakery, and how we break bread together as humans, right? Having an exceptionally immersive experience. All my love, everybody. If there are any questions, please do ask. Yes, and if, you know, yeah, I hope this has spread some light and some aspects around the good, the bad, the ugly of the plant medicine space, and also the good, the bad, the ugly of creation, the amazing aspects around sovereignty, self-agency, participation in reality, right? I didn't speak too much to hijacking of structures, but I will do another video on that. And this is more pertaining to tribes and things like that. So we have shamanic tribes, you know, that are sitting in the jungle. This is a really interesting part around this, because we could begin to question levels of consciousness and information of these tribes, these holders of medicine, but not see the shift of consciousness. So this is very interesting. And of course, we also have the aspect around shamanism with regards to the land, the plants, the medicine, the you know, the grids there. I haven't alluded much to that. I actually recently did a big 30-page document for a festival where the theme is shamanism, and I think I kind of flipped the script a bit, as I always do, because and I say this to my retreat participants as well, is this experience with me is not about shamanism. Yes, we go into an altered state of reality, but I'm not even focusing on that. This is not a trip down hyperdimensionalized lane, although that may be a result of your experience. I don't know, but it's not about that. That's not what my focus is on. And so I may need to do another video around this, you know. And again, it all comes down to identities. What are you identifying with? What archetypal structure are you learning from? And what does that archetypal structure, along with its doctrines, dictate that you should be doing, how you should dress, how you should look, etc., how you do things? In this last weekend ceremony, it was so beautiful, because I got to a point where I was like, B, you don't know it all right? And now it's time to drop all of the information and sit in your source. And I'm so grateful I did that. I'm so grateful I did this. And this is kind of alluding to the video prior to this, of like, if you are constantly trying to gain perfection, you may never step off the plate, right? And so there's a sense of pride that I had in my execution and of facilitation this weekend, because that's what I'm trying to teach, right? You've got it all within you. That's what we're all trying to teach as spiritual teachers. You don't need the mushrooms. You don't need the ayahuasca. You don't need Tantra Dave. You don't need this. What we need is an inner gnosis that it's all within, right? The kingdom of heaven lies within. What we need is each other, right? What we need is a little bit more compassion, some love, dance, play, creation, all in masculine and feminine balance with a level of respect. That's what we need, is respect. I love you all. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll chat soon. Ciao.